Welcome to our 5 on 5. I'm pleased to be joined by Senator Jeff Merkley on Capitol Hill. Senator, thanks for taking the time.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
So I wanted to talk to you today about something that actually happened last week. Admiral Lisa Franchetti named the first woman to lead the U.S. Navy. Also, of course, the first woman on the Joint Chiefs. She's the former commander at the U.S. Naval Reserve Center here in Central Point, which is now a defunct facility. But you supported her nomination. What can you tell us about her and her historic appointment?
Well, I think her great career must have had something to do with the start she had in Oregon, of course, and it is breaking the glass ceiling. She is the first woman to be on the Joint Chiefs, and I think she's going to pave the path for many more to come.
And this fall, certainly a busy time for you and for everyone on Capitol Hill. You're on the Senate Appropriations Committee. Last week, it passed several bills that do impact Oregon. What stands out most of those to you?
Well, there's a whole series of projects scattered around the state, and including ones, for example, affordable workforce housing in the Coos County Annex. It would be rebuilt. Or the city of Sutherland acquiring a property to provide emergency shelter and supportive wraparound services. Or the Oregon Wildlife Heritage Foundation building a wildlife overpass over I-5. Those are just examples of a ton of projects scattered around the state in the category of this particular set of three bills. One of them dealing with military construction, so the Air National Guard benefiting in Oregon, one dealing with agriculture, and there's a lot of piping projects for Oregon, and the third dealing with housing and transportation.
In international news, it's been over a month now since the surprise Hamas terrorist attack that Israel says killed 1,400 people and led to the kidnappings of several hundred more who are still being held hostage in the Gaza Strip. More than 1.5 million have been displaced in Gaza, and health officials say more than 10,000 have been killed as Israel bombards the Palestinian enclave. What do you want to see right now in this clearly devastating conflict?
I want to see an immediate cessation of hostilities to accomplish a number of things. One is better organized negotiations over the release of the hostages. A second is the establishment of safe zones so citizens aren't being killed in the conflict. A third is a massive influx of humanitarian aid, of water, of food, of medical supplies, of fuel for the hospitals' generators. And perhaps most importantly, a pause in which the United States and Israel have a real conversation about the future of Gaza and how to break this cycle of violence. I'm very concerned that the current strategy, which involves flattening basically every bit of infrastructure north of the Gaza River, means that nobody will be able to return. So you have displaced people displaced for a very long time to come. I think that's going to create a cycle of additional violence, not be a solution. And we need to pause and have that conversation. In the past, we've often said we will support Israel and we know that they'll make good decisions. I think at this point, the amount of our aid, the amount of our partnership, our goals in the region mean that we have to take responsibility for being part of the conversation to try to end this cycle of violence.
What about another international conflict? Of course, what's happening and it's been happening in Ukraine. What's the debate right now like on Capitol Hill for more Ukrainian aid?
Yeah, the House of Representatives wants to throw Ukrainian aid overboard. And essentially, what this amounts to is appeasement of Putin. We all know historically what a huge mistake it was when Chamberlain tried to appease Hitler by saying, go ahead and take Czechoslovakia. Well, it would be a huge mistake now for my Republican colleagues to try to appease Putin and say, go ahead and take Ukraine. This is not acceptable. It will encourage every savage dictator to assault democratic, democracy, freedom-loving neighbors. It will be the abandonment of leadership in the world. It will be encouragement of Xi to take Taiwan. We will pay in treasure and blood enormously if we make this mistake. We need to stand together with Europe in this alliance in support of Ukraine.
Okay, we're going to take a quick commercial break. Definitely want to talk to you about this week's elections. But first, this commercial break. Stay with us. Welcome back to our 5 on 5. Again, we're here with Senator Jeff Merkley. Senator, Ohio residents voted this week to enshrine abortion rights. You're pro-choice. What do you think this says about this hyper-partisan issue and what it could mean to a divided country as we head towards 2024?
We have seen after the Supreme Court overthrew Roe v. Wade that in state after state, the citizens are saying, we believe we should have the opportunity to make decisions about reproductive rights, not have the government make those decisions for us. I think it goes right to what I've always said, that the government doesn't belong in the exam room with a woman and her doctor. That is a tough questions that she has to address, and we need to keep the government out of it.
New polling this week shows cause for concern, I believe, from CNN and New York Times regarding President Biden's reelection chances. Are you concerned at all about these polls?
Well, these polls will concern anyone who's on the Democratic side of the aisle, and we do recognize that we kind of have a thirst for new individuals. When Bill Clinton came onto the scene as a young governor, it was exciting. When Barack Obama came onto the scene as a young senator, it was exciting. And of course, Biden has been in the public limelight forever, so there's not kind of a new, fresh start there. But what there is are three significant bills he has to campaign on. He has the biggest investment in infrastructure that we've seen since Eisenhower. We see the biggest investment in the Inflation Reduction Act and the transition to renewable energy. And we see the CHIPS Act finally bringing factories home from abroad. And so he has a lot to talk about, including the lowest sustained unemployment. That is the highest sustained employment in America. And that's the conversation he's going to be holding over the coming year.
This Saturday is Veterans Day. What can you tell us about the Veterans History Project? And I understand you're encouraging Oregon veterans from all walks of life to share their unique stories of their service.
Yes, this is the second anniversary of my support for this. And it's not just a Veterans Day project, it's an everyday project in which we're encouraging every veteran to realize that they can share their stories, their memorabilia, including if they want their journals and pictures, kind of original materials that will be stored by the Library of Congress basically forever into the future. And having the firsthand stories of people who have engaged in conflict, whether it's Vietnam or it's Afghanistan or it's Iraq or it's somewhere else, really is a very powerful contribution to the descendants of an individual. They can go and say, hey, what was grandpa's take on that conflict he was involved in? It was also a really big, valuable contribution to future historians understanding the conflicts. So any veteran in Oregon, we'd love to have you share your stories. You can volunteer for this project. An individual would come and a volunteer interviewer would come and interview you and help secure these materials. And we really want to encourage folks from rural Oregon, from our native tribes, from our communities of color that are somewhat underrepresented in this project to be able to get engaged.
Senator, thank you so much for taking the time for us today.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
We'll be right back.